Hello YouTube and welcome to another Linux tutorial. So in this video I will show you how to install Firebird database in Linux. So are you ready? Let's get started. So actually Firebird is less known as the most SQL databases like MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres, SQL, okay? But it's also used in many different projects and large projects. It's actually based on Interbase, which is another old database. It's a relational database, okay? So let's get started in order to install it and use it in Linux. So here, as you can see, I'm using Ubuntu. So in order to install it, it's pretty simple. We'll use the sudo command apt install then Firebird server, okay? So with this simple command you can actually start starting up or installing the Firebird server on your Linux machine. Here we go. So you can see this operation will take actually almost 18 megabytes, so I will answer yes here and I will wait for the installation to complete. So here, as you can see, it's actually downloading Firebird version 3.0, okay, from the default repositories of Ubuntu. So here we have actually to provide what we call a password. So the password for the sysdba, so you can use whatever password you want, okay? So I'll use here mine and I will enter the tab key on my keyboard, okay? Here we go. So now it's been installed on my system. So make sure to remember your sysdba password because it's pretty important in the future if you want to connect to it or something like that. So now it's installed. Okay, so now that the database has been installed, we can use it using another command, which is MySQL Firebird. Here we go. So you can see here with this command we can either connect to an existing database or create our own. Okay, so let's create our own database. Okay, so here in order to create it we use SQL language. It's pretty simple like MySQL or MariaDB. So I will start by creating a database. And here between quotes we can provide actually the path to this new database. So if you don't provide the path, it will be created on the current directory. So let's create it on the current directory, and for example let's call it student.fdb. So this is the name of our database, okay? And for database we have to provide also a user. We can use whatever user we want, but let's stick with sysdba. Here we go, also between quotes, and also we have to provide a password in order to connect to it. So here I'll just provide a simple one like 123. So with this simple command here, SQL command or SQL syntax, we can create a database named student, and of course semicolon at the end. Here we go. So here you can see that I have done a mistake. That's why it has actually repeated line connect or create the database. So the mistake is here. So the database, I missed the A, so here I have to add an A here, database. Okay, so make sure with the syntax for SQL, it's very important. So now I don't have the same message anymore. Okay, so now that the database has been created, we can connect to it. So let's connect using the connect keyword, and here between quotes we provide the path to our database. So it's on the same directory, so I have no problem here. sysdba. Okay, and also I have to provide the user in order to connect to it. So remember, we have used sysdba and also a password. So the password was actually 123, and always the semicolon in order to finish our syntax. So it's pretty easy syntax. All you have to here to do is to actually use the keyword connect. So here we have another message, commit current transaction, will answer yes, and now you can see that we are connected with the user sysdba to our student database. So now we can start using our database. So let's create, for example, a table. So the syntax is pretty simple, create table. Let's call it, for example, students this time. Okay, and let's use just two actually columns here for our database. We use column ID, which is integer, not null, and also which is a primary key. Okay, and also let's use another column called student, or actually name, which is the type is varchar, for example 25. Okay, so with this syntax we will create a table called students, so always the semicolon at the end. Okay, here we go. So here we have syntax error. Okay, so let's see what's the problem here. So let's repeat the same syntax, but actually I guess here after the primary we have to put, I forget the primary key actually. Here we go. Now I have created my table. Let's verify that with show tables command. Here we go. So as you can see, we have our students table. Let's insert some data. So I will use here the syntax insert into table name, which is students, and let's put some values. For example, here the ID will be 1, and for the name between quotes let's put, for example, Amina. Okay, and always semicolon at the end. So here we have another error. So actually I forget here, insert into students. Actually here we have to add values. So here it's pretty good to have mistakes, so in order to see the correct syntax actually. So here I forget the keyword, SQL keyword values. Here we go. Now we have successfully insert our first value. Let's add another one. Let's call it, for example, Jennifer. Here we go. Let's add a third one. For example, John. Okay, and now let's actually get all these records using the simple syntax, select all from our table name, which is students, and semicolon at the end. Here we go. So here we have our 3 records that I have inserted before. Okay, it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Okay, so you can actually use the same syntax that you have to use in MySQL or MariaDB. So if you want, for example, to select specific records, you have here to add the where clause. where, for example, name is equal to Jennifer. So with the syntax, we will only get one record. Here we go, which the ID is 2. You can also get some information about your server, for example, with the command show version. Here we go. So you can see here I'm using Firebird version 3.0 and MySQL version 3.0.5.3000 or something. Okay. So that was just a brief introduction to this pretty and also less unknown database management system called Firebird. As always, I hope it has been informative for you, and I want to thank you for viewing. Bye bye.